is a 9-member board. Come forward to the microphone. Renamings do require a public hearing, and once the public hearing is completed, Planning Commission members will deliberate and render their decision. Keep in mind, Planning Commission members with a personal or financial interest in any petitioner's request are required to recuse themselves. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the members of the Planning Commission. We have to my far left, we have Mr. James Reed. We have Mr. Cruz Reeves. We have Mr. Jerome Moore and Clemens. Buddy Harwick serves as our vice chairman, and yours truly, Kippy Tate, is your chairman tonight. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to forget Mr. Frank Cook on my far right. Thank you, sir. Tonight, we also have with us the Planning Controls staff members. We have Mr. Tommy Tyson, Mr. Robert Smith, Mr. James Center, and Ms. Tanya Ingham, recording secretary. Members and petitioners are requested to please speak directly into the microphone. The minutes are recorded for legal purposes, and this is the only way to accurately pick up the audio. Tonight we have 7 members present. It will take 5 votes to pass a motion. Because of the number of board members present, if you would like to delay your request, please let us know when your request is announced. Keep in mind, it's going to take 5 votes of the 7 of us in here to have your motion passed, okay? Are there any changes to the agenda, Tommy? Okie dokie. Have we had a chance to go through the minutes, members of the commission?
Yes.
Everybody had a chance to go through the minutes? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. Members have voted and the motion passes. Mr. Tyson?
First item is presented by Jeff Code Engineers on behalf of Delaney Properties Group LLC. It's a request to rezone 5 lots on the northwest corner of Ann Street and Plum Street from R60S to B3.
Hey, Guthrie, hang on just a second, please. We got to get your microphone.
Got it? Okay. I'm Guthrie Jeffcoat of Jeffcoat Engineers and Surveyors, and we're here for a rehearing on the 5 properties with addresses 2805 through 2821 Plum Street. These are 3 rental houses. 2 of them are uninhabited, and one is uninhabitable, and the other one is vacant. We first want to ask that the rezoning request be modified to be B3-Q. It was just B3, but want it to come under B3-Q. Since the last meeting, I've developed a site plan that showed how the property may be developed with quite a extensive buffer on the west side with a 8-foot privacy fence, 4-foot landscape buffers with trees and shrubs, and it's worked quite well over there on Carter Hill Road where the car wash is that y'all approved some year or 2 ago, and I think it'd work good here. Has other landscaping buffers around the perimeter, but it won't be as tall. I've Well, I want to introduce Paul Burkett and Ed Fleming, who are associated with this project, for some details that they have.
Commissioner, I just don't want to say a whole lot, but I did want to say thank you for letting us have the opportunity to delay the vote so that we could work with the neighborhood. We have talked directly with the two homeowners that are in
Before
that
you go
immediate
forward, tell us your
block.
name again, please.
Paul Burkett.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. But we have talked with two of the homeowners that are really the only two homeowners in that immediate block, and Mr. Fleming's going to talk about.
Yes, sir. I'm Ed Fleming with Hodges Real Estate, and I have with us this evening Donald Rayon, whose property is contiguous to our development, and he will benefit from the buffer and all that, and then Miss Jean McDonald. And they are the only two owners that actually live on the block on Plum and Longview. So if you want to, I can introduce Mr. Rayon. It's Mr. Rayon.
My name is Donald Rayon, and I live at 2801 Plum Street. From the information that I've received on the redevelopment of this property, I have no problem with it at all. So whatever.
Where's your property in relationship to this proposed development?
Right next door.
You're next door,
Right,
along Plum Street.
right.
And you intend to, will you be living there
I plan to,
even after this development is completed, if it's
even after it's
approved?
completed, if it's approved.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else want to speak?
Yeah, I'm going to
Oh, you're-
introduce Miss Jean in a minute. I sold Mr. Rayon that house. He's retired military a couple of years ago. It's a very nice red brick home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it is just outstanding for the neighborhood and what you'd like to see there. And yes, he intends to live there. He's enjoying his house. Miss Jean McDonald, ma'am.
Greetings. I would like to remind you all also to speak into your microphones. It is a little difficult. The acoustics are not very good in here. So if you do have something to say, please speak as clearly as you can so we don't have to have you repeat yourself.
Your name is Jean
I'm Jean
McDonald?
E. McDonald. I own the property at 2800 Plum Street. It's directly across the street from Mr. Rayon. My suggestion was if you could put the line drawing back up. It shows the property directly along Ann Street is a little bit longer. If we could put that dumpster up towards the front of that and screen it as you will, I believe there's 15 feet there, almost anyway, that would be far enough from any houses that nobody would be listening to it. We are requesting, Ms. Cindy, I believe, will speak about that, that the dumpsters be emptied in that area at a more reasonable hour. And we realize that may also have to be addressed outside of this forum here. But if that could be done with this additional screening, you know, there's additional development happening on the other side of the street at some point in the near future, so we'll deal with that then. But there are some traffic concerns. I really would prefer to see something with no entrances onto Ann Street at all and just use the main Plum Street. It's bad enough to have an entrance there because you're really close to Highland in that major intersection, and most of the time I will go down around over to Grace Street to go north on Ann Street because it's just easier than turning left. Because you never know when somebody's going to come flying down Ann Street and run that light, let alone if the light's green, then they're really gunning it to make it. So if we could accomplish that and minimize the noise, I would prefer something without a drive-through. I believe that will be addressed by the other ladies also. And have more of a sit-down restaurant or something without drive-through because you get the additional noise of people coming and going constantly. I experience that with Popeyes because the back corner of my lot is 75 foot or so from, or not even that, about 50 feet from Popeye's property, and my actual bedroom window is about 75 or 80 feet, and I can clearly feel their dumpster being emptied at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's almost better then because I'm in bed. If I'm in the kitchen, I might be cutting something or holding something breakable, and that dumpster shakes the house. I'm liable to drop and hurt myself. I think you can appreciate that if you really think about it. I'm sure it's well over 100 decibels, you know.
Ms. McDonald, where is your house exactly? You said across from,
Across from Mr. Rounds at 2800, I'm at the northwest
are you at the corner?
corner of Plum and
So
Longview.
you're at the corner of Plum and Longview?
So the front northeast corner of my property will be directly across the street from the corner of this property. If the gentleman says that their higher berm and, which I believe he said is 4 foot plus an 8 foot fence on top of that has helped stop noise from a car wash, I believe they've done some work on it.
So are you for or against this item?
I have mixed feelings, to be quite frankly. If it goes on, maybe I can get moved out of there. Maybe we can get the rest of that developed. If it doesn't, somebody else will come along. I think they've addressed our concerns to a degree, other than the drive-through. But I really think that they're willing to work with us, and I'm not sure the next people are going to be.
So
So I'm like 51% for it and 49% against.
okay. And I
If you
guess
can
my-
understand that, it's a tricky thing. You know, I at least admit that I have mixed feelings.
Well, yeah, that's why we want your opinion. Do
I
you
think they've done a
understand-
lot of work.
When they say B3Q, do you understand? what's
Yes, we were
involved
just
with all
going
that?
over
They
some of
shared that
those.
with you? Because some of the things that you may be asking for may be included in that designation, or it may not.
Yes, they are, some of them. And some of the things we're talking about sidewalks, but really, there are no sidewalks on Plum Street until you get within a block of Ryan. And in the rest of the neighborhood, there's a little patch of sidewalk on a couple of different blocks, and most of that, there's not sidewalks in the neighborhood. People are walking down the street. People are walking down the street where there are sidewalks, you know.
So last month you were here and you were pretty animated about your opposition to the.
Yeah, I didn't think
development
they
north
had
of-
thought it out very well,
Let
and
me
I think they
finish.
put some more thought in it.
Let me finish, please. You're pretty animated about the property development north of there. Have those concerns been addressed in this development?
Yeah, I think all of the concerns, I think they're doing as well as they can, being next to a neighborhood. If we can get that dumpster farther away from any house.
What about the noise? That was a concern.
If we cannot have a drive-through, it would be much better. Because right now, they have moved somebody into the one house that was empty. I thought that was the one that was uninhabitable, and whoever owns that moved somebody into it. There's people living there, right next to Mr. Rayon now. And there's still trash in some of the other lots. They're not kept up. I know they've gotten notices and so on, but again, that's not necessarily under your jurisdiction. It's just something we've had to live with. But they have started cleaning them up. One further down Plum Street to the west that was boarded up. Somebody's now been working on that, has a dumpster out there, is cleaning it out. It's looking pretty nice. Somebody's probably going to be moving in there. So I was hoping the neighborhood would just go better for residential. But I said when Walmart moved in that the development on the other side was inevitable. It's been more than 12 years. I adopted a dog just after that. She's 12 years old now. You know, I'm surprised it's taken this long.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question.
Well,
Wait,
hang on,
ma'am.
Ms. McDonald, somebody else's.
You own any other lots on that block?
No, sir, the only property I own is the one I live on in the United States, anywhere.
Okay. And I'd like to pose the same question to the gentleman on 2801. Okay.
Okay,
Yes, sir. Again, I'm Ed Fleming. All we're asking for is that B3Q that you've already done for the Hardys and the other two locations down there, the Title Max and the Popeyes. So we're not asking for anything extra. And I think the development that we'll put in there will be a nice addition to the subdivision. It brings some jobs and some other things. Mr. Delaney here, the developer, is here if you want to speak to him.
I mean, it's your presentation. Go ahead and get him to come
Mr.
up if
Lane,
he's got anything to say.
Thank you so much.
Ed, I've got a quick question, if I
Yes,
could.
sir.
We discussed the dumpster, and I see the dumpster is on the, I guess that would be the northwest corner.
Yes, sir.
I didn't hear where I felt like we really had that part worked out. She's suggesting moving it, if I understood correctly. And
Yes.
y'all are suggesting screening. And I just was trying to understand.
There will be a wooden screen around it the whole way. Now, as far as here versus over here, I mean, y'all have rules and regulations. I didn't do the engineering. I mean, if you'd let them put it over here, I'm sure that might work out if it's a tree, but there's not a tree there. But I mean, to put the dumpster there, but
We have as much control as you do.
Okay, well, there you go. I don't have any,
So
so-
all I'm asking is in order for us to completely understand the issue with the dumpster,
right.
y'all are willing to move it, assuming that the engineering would be allowed to do so by the city.
Sure, sure. And of course, all that property to the north of there is all parking lot
But
for the
you're-
church.
But you're not telling, you're not saying that for sure that you're moving the dumpster.
No, sir, I wouldn't be
That's
able to.
what I
That
wanna
just,
make
the-
sure that
the
there's-
developer could probably tell you whether they could or couldn't. Okay, here you go. Mr. Lane.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for taking the time to meet with us tonight. So the dumpster, the issue I see with that is if you're right in and right out on Ann Street, if you're trying to pick up trash right there, you're gonna.
Exactly.
So what we can do to accommodate that is in the lease with our prospective tenants, we can certainly mandate that they pick up between 8 and 5. And so that's not hard to do. We can address that there. But, you know, leaving it in the rear along that north property line away from the buffer, kind of, you know, we could probably put it on the north line versus where it showed there. So we can work around that where the truck can come directly in, pick it up, back up, and then come out and work that way. So we can address it, we can move it, but I don't see it going up there just because of a safety hazard. But I'm not an engineer, I'm just looking.
Okay, so we'll move along. Are you done with your presentation?
Couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The lady before had a question about one, preferring not to have a drive-through restaurant. Is that something that you're willing to take out
No,
of your?
sir, I can't do that.
Okay. Are you willing to come off of Ann Street? Not come off of Ann Street?
Well, I think for the flow of the whole lot and the fact that really, I mean, if you're coming in off Ann Street and then you can circle the building and come back out on Ann Street, I mean, that would really alleviate traffic on Plum by keeping it on Ann. So if you're trying to keep traffic off Plum, then by having that right in, right out off of Ann Street, it's to the benefit rather than the detriment of Plum Street.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
I would just say it appears we have one more to speak.
Well, actually, the commission needs to ask the questions if they have any. Well, he needs to finish his presentation, then we'll go to get the comments from the audience. And so, Guthrie, are you done?
Yeah, except I think from an engineering standpoint, we'd have no problem bringing that to bringing the dumpster over on the east side at some location that would satisfy the backouts and all. So I don't want y'all to be left confused. Engineers can make that happen over there. And you heard he's agreeable to it.
What about this detention area, Guthrie, that you have in that?
Yeah, that's on the west side. That's a natural ford. It's occurring where the drainage goes into a corner there, and so.
And how big is it?
It's very small. Hadn't done all the calculations on it, but it'll go across the entire lot at about a 7 or 8 foot width.
We're sitting
Maybe
right
10
over there
foot.
behind that dumpster.
Sir?
Right now, you got it sitting over right behind the dumpster.
Yeah, right now it's right behind the dumpster, right?
Where does it drain from there?
But if we move the dumpster to the east side, it won't have any possibility of conflict with the detention.
Does it require a fence around it?
If need be. I hadn't thought about it, but you know, I've always said that'd be a good idea on all of them. They're dangerous, but.
So you're an engineer registered in the state of Alabama, right?
Yes, sir.
What's your professional opinion?
That it should have a fence around it.
Thank you. Okay, does that wrap up your presentation? Now we'll go to the audience. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this item? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this item? Ma'am, you were coming up at one point. Give us your name, please.
Move over, Guthrie.
Guthrie. Somebody's behind you, Guthrie.
I didn't see you.
I'm Helen Harris, and I have met with Sandra O'Callahan and Jean McDonald in Highland Park, and we agreed that I would go over these requests with you, and then Sandra O'Callahan may address things that I may leave out. I'm essentially looking at the qualifiers that were put on Hardee's. We've deleted a number of them and added 2 and modified a couple as the requests for qualifiers for this property, and we'll be adding the same, we'll be requesting the same for the next agenda item on Ann Street. The qualifiers that we request are no automobile filling stations, auto repair shops, or automobile retail sales. We've added no fast food, no quick cash, and no pawn shops. All of those add a lot of nuisance to a neighborhood. No travel trailer parks, no hotels, motels, no commercial advertising structures such as billboards, no Class E, F, or G uses under current zoning code. For lots with roadway frontage on Ann Street, there will be allowed 1 sign, monument type, not to exceed 100 square feet, not to exceed 6 feet in elevation from the center line of Ann Street, not to include any flashing, strobe, oscillating, or rotating lights. For lots fronting Ann Street and any other street the preceding applies, plus 1 additional sign will be allowed, monument type, not to exceed 40 square feet, not to exceed 4 feet in elevation from the center line of Ann Street, not to include any flashing, strobe, oscillating, or rotating lights. Any outside amplified music must cease by 9 p.m. Any parking or perimeter lighting will be directed away from adjoining residential areas and fully shielded. Adjoining residential areas will be screened by 8-foot wood privacy fence, vegetative screening chosen in consultation with the city's urban forester. There will be a garage dumpster enclosure that will be gated, fully screened, and the dumpster shall not be emptied before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. There will be no drive-through windows at any businesses. All rooftop equipment will be screened by a parapet wall.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you if you don't mind. Have you had a chance to discuss your concerns with the developer and the folks that are for this project?
No, the developer was talking for a while with them, and then the last time Ms. McDonald emailed, she didn't get a response, and we didn't have this list at that time.
And I'm not trying to cut you short, but your request at this point, I would hope that you all will have had a chance to speak to this, because I don't know if this is the form to solve those problems that you have when it comes to our approval. I would hope normally that you guys get together before we get down here with these.
I understand that, and my apologies for not having done so.
Well, I don't think it's your problem. I think it's their problem.
Okay. And there's only one more, though.
Sure, that's all right, yeah.
This is the last one. The sign elevation will not exceed 10 square feet above centerline elevation of Ann Street at its nearest point. The sign face will either be limited to 100 square feet and business logo only, or to 80 square feet, including logo and removable letter message board. And those were all on the Hardee's that were mentioned several times during the last meeting, but I just didn't get a copy of them until it was too late to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak for or against this item?
I got a question.
For Ms.
Yes. And Tommy, and I know that we had restrictions on the Hardee's, but Hardee's is a drive-through.
Right.
And I think what you just said was no drive-through.
That was
How
added.
did-
That's something you wanted added.
Add to the.
You want that added to?
Yes, sir.
I believe she said no fast food.
Said no
Yeah,
fast food.
I heard that too.
Right, that was
And
added.
I couldn't keep up with all of it, so I don't know.
No fast food was added, no quick cash, no pawn stores, no drive-throughs. Those were all added.
Well, we got it, and I guess the thing is, if we've got someone else who wants to speak, we'll hear them, and then we'll ask the owner to come, the developer to come back up here and address what you just laid out.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, indeed.
My name is Sandra O'Callahan. I just want to clarify that I have been in contact with Mr. Jeffcoat. I did get the plans. We are trying to have some communication with the neighborhood and Mr. Jeffcoat and the development. I'm glad to see the dumpster could be moved. I think the biggest concern, I did send him an email on Tuesday asking for no drive-through. I had not received anything back by
Where do you live in relationship to this proposal?
I actually live on Locust Street. I'm just now starting a neighborhood association, and our first meeting is not until November 16th. So right now I'm acting as the voice for Highland Park.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the audience? Guthrie, would you like to come back up and address the issues that Ms. Harris mentioned? Well, he started the presentation.
Yes, Commissioner. I would mention as to the qualifications, we did talk with the Development Department as extensively as we could concerning the different B3 Qs, so the different qualifiers and the different ordinances that are out there. And it was our attempt to include some of the things, for instance, that were on that long list that said there will be no this. In the sheet that you would have been provided prior to the meeting, it eliminates those by not even having those. In other words, since each development has been decided on independently, ours wouldn't even include those things that were excluded before. You know, they were just saying B3, but we're going to exclude this. Well, what we're saying is only B3, these types, and designating those exact types. To eliminate coal yards, there'll be no coal yards, which is one of those that's in there, which is, to us, it's silly now, but I guess in the old days when the subdivision was coming along, it could have been an issue.
So the bigger question, though, is I know you've spoken to the gentleman that lives next door. Who else have you talked to in the neighborhood other than the gentleman next door?
I'd have to leave that to Mr. Fleming.
Yes, sir. I've spoken to the two owners that live on the street. I've also spoken to some of the folks that own the rental property, not only the property that we have here, but across the street that would be contiguous to Gene's property. And they would like to see development, commercial development. The houses are old, the rentals are tough, and most of them, the ones that are vacant, is creating a lot of problems over there. Mm-hmm. And what we're using is the qualifying items that were set before us. And this is what the city told us we could use. So this is our qualifications, this letter that we have here, and that's what we're going by.
So now you've heard Helen's concerns, and I'm going to get some kind of response. Are you amenable to any of those, or are you just not going to deal with it? What's your response?
Well, we're amenable to moving the garbage can, but that's about it. I mean, okay. We going by strictly the BQ3 that you gave us, or the city gave us, that we worked with Ms. Helen, and that's what we're at. And that's what you have.
Tommy, this was what was used for, and Robert, this was what was used for Harding?
Parts of it.
Parts of it.
Yeah, that's not
exactly.
the comprehensive.
I'm sorry?
Not exactly, but those are the ones that Helen went over with Mr. Burkett, the restrictions that were placed on the Hardys, and they singled out these 6 of those.
They cherry picked through the ones that they wanted from and qualified those.
Well, I have to address that because that's not exactly what happened. I did get a call from the Development Department, and the Development Department wanted me to make it more readable and easier to understand. So I didn't have really a whole lot to do with coming through here and saying, well, eliminate anything. As a matter of fact, our idea was, well, whatever's on a B3Q that allows a Hardee's would be sufficient for us. And, but what the development department wanted to do was make it to where there weren't so many things that were not applicable. And so this wasn't actually even
So
typed.
did the development department determine the ones that were not applicable, or did you determine the ones that were not applicable?
I'll let Ms. Tanya.
He came in and met with me and Helen today. We went over Hardee's, Popeyes, and Speedy Cash, all the restrictions, and I have a copy if y'all want them. And Hardee's and Speedy Cash are pretty much the same. Popeyes is not as restrictive. We pulled out what they were wanting. They want the drive-through.
So let's ask the question, what's going in your development? The reason I'm asking is because we're making a comparison to Hardee's and others, so tell us specifically what you're putting into your development.
We were, at this time, I can't tell you.
Well, then how are we supposed to deal with the qualifications? If
Well,
you
I'm
compare
giving
them to
you
the ones-
I'm giving you a development plan that shows a two-bay strip center with a drive-through that would be ideal. But, you know, when we were working this and we had to table it last month, we really pulled the throttle back on.
Tony, I would like a copy of the Hardee's and the other ones, please. And I'm going to ask you, Jerome, if you want to jump in here while she brings that up, go right ahead.
I would just like to say this. Ms. Harris, Ms. O'Callahan, and Ms. McDonald have raised some great concerns, and the developer has met a lot of those concerns. I think having the lighting directed back to the area has been satisfied, and it's also in the B3 qualifications. Having a screening fence has been satisfied. Having a buffer, a landscaping buffer, has been satisfied. Not picking up the dumpster during the midnight hours, and I've got a dumpster by my house, so I can appreciate that. It does wake me up every morning about 4:30. That will be addressed in the lease as long as Mr. Delaney puts that in the lease and keeps his word in that regard. The rub is on the fast food and the drive-through windows, and I think that, you know, naturally in that area it's making a transformation, and that's not always comfortable. And you know, if it's like Ms. McDonald said, you don't know what's coming down the pike next. There is another crack at this at the city council level. And I know personally, I like to see when the residents are weighing concerns about their neighborhood, and I like to see when developers respond. And I think that the city perhaps should come in and do some stuff around your neighborhood, because they'll be receiving a much higher value for the land and the tax use from the new use. And that should go back into your neighborhood. And there should be maybe some requests from the neighborhood to the city that will make your neighborhood work in coordination with what's happening on the major corridors.
Give me 1 second. So, Tanya, thank you for the qualifications for the various businesses along Ann Street. Hardee's has 8 qualifiers, Popeyes has 14, and Speedy Cash has 11. That's why I asked you which one, what are you doing, because we have nothing to compare what you're proposing to.
Hardee's has a lot more than 8.
Oh, I didn't even, well.
There's a second
yeah,
page.
there's 3 pages. So my point to you is, you're asking us to vote on something for you guys for the qualifiers that you have picked out, but we're trying to figure out how best to apply those qualifiers based on what's been along that street already. And that's what I think the city went over with you, and you kind of picked out what you wanted based on what you know is coming, but I don't know if those are more restrictive or less restrictive. I can't get a sense for what you're trying to do from the qualification aspect as it relates to what's along the street already.
I hear your concerns, Commissioner, and I think although what our attempt was to have every restriction that Hardee's had, but nothing that was not needed or that was inapplicable.
So why did you pick Hardee's instead of Popeyes or Speedy Cash? Just a question.
Well, either one of them. I mean, either one of them would allow the use that we're looking for. We were looking for guidance, and we were just seeking some guidance from the development department. There was nothing that we tried to eliminate that was in one or not in the other. If you took the ordinance for one of those and said we need to comply with the strictest ordinance there, we would be able to do it and move forward with the development.
Can I ask a question, though? The gentleman said that he could not allow the drive-through. So is it a chicken place, a burger place, a steak place, a hot dog place, or a food place? Is that what this is?
No, I can honestly tell you, I do not have the tenant yet for this building.
But you know you need a drive-through for this particular.
I would, yes, absolutely.
So it is a fast food operation.
It would be when we first looked at this, we had a soft-use telecommunications company, which they went by the wayside. But in the interim, we decided to keep moving forward with the project because I like the location, I like the area, I like proximity to Walmart, all the other fast food, everything that is there, all the elements are there for this particular site to thrive as a retail site. Fast food or soft use.
Or what?
Soft use, which would be, if you look at the development plan, that's what we were looking at, is doing a cell phone store. But yes, a fast food.
Cruz, I think you wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
I have a question for Tommy. I know that back when Walmart was being developed, the Highland Park Association met with the developer and had some things that they wanted to be sure wasn't allowed on Ann Street. Have they met all those restrictions?
Walmart?
No, this developer, has he met all these? But it was agreed then that certain things would not be on Ann Street.
Well, as far as the signage goes, that was the main focus, I believe,
And that's a lot more than that.
There was more other items too, but signage was part of it. It was a primary concern.
It was a pylon.
What?
It limited it to a pylon.
Yeah.
And we've reviewed the ordinance from that, and that was one of the first things we saw and reviewed. It was a sidewalk out front, which isn't shown in this. I mean, it was just some particular items, no auto repair.
This part of the conversation came up last time. I think Frank brought up a lot of this and how the community came out and a lot of those issues were addressed. But right now, we've got some concerns, at least I have some concerns that Helen has brought up that dovetails back into the qualifications.
Kippy, they on this sheet right here, they took out some of the qualifications from the others and they condensed them to this particular page.
What sheet are you looking at?
It was put in front of us, item number 1.
Oh, I just got that when I sat down, so I'm not sure what that says.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But I mean, I'll tell you that the sign not to exceed 100 square feet, no music after 9 p.m., perimeter lighting directed away from the residential areas, screening of the fence, garbage dumpster screen, and restrictions of different items, which when Ms. Harris came up here and gave us her list, the only thing that's really not on there is it is a fast food establishment, and it does have a drive-through window. It would be great if you could do this soft use and not have a drive-through window if you actually had a cell phone store that would go in there. But that was one of 2 tenants, and I'm assuming one has to be fast food. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think in a situation like this, Jerome, obviously when you've got the neighborhood and the people around this development with these kinds of concerns, normally we've asked these folks to work it out and come back down here if they could.
Can I make a point?
Don't interrupt me just yet, please.
Sorry.
In the past, we've asked the developer or the petitioner to get with the neighborhood and see what they could work out, and 9 times out of 10 they'll come back and there was some kind of solution. In this case, they're leaving it up to us to make a decision, and I see opposing interests at this point that could probably be worked out if they went back and had a chance to talk about it. I'm sorry, you may go ahead.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry for interrupting. So the nice lady that came up here and spoke, she said she received an email, but we didn't get a list until she didn't ever get us the list that she came up here and read. So we didn't have a chance to review that. It's the first time we've heard it as well. And, you know,
on the same token, I want to be fair to the lady and to be fair to you too. The list that Jerome just read off, I didn't get it till I sat down up here at 4:45.
Okay.
So
Well-
I'm just, so if you're gonna go that route, I think.
Well,
those of us
so my point is, we have worked with the neighborhood. We have spent time over the last 3 weeks extensively, the planning department, and, you know, to resolve most of the issues. And if the issue is that we can't have a drive-through, and that's gonna be an impasse, then it's gonna have to be the impasse. But, you know, where we stand is, we've really worked with the neighbors, the neighbor to the west, right there, he's okay with it, and we've really we've put a lot of time and effort into trying to work with the neighborhood and appease everyone involved.
Could I ask one question, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
Just in looking at the Hardee's and some of the others, one of the items that was not in the queue that we got this afternoon was the no automobile filling stations, auto repair, or auto resale shops. It's not part of the queue that y'all had in here. Was there a reason why that was specific?
I'm pretty sure because it's restricted. The property's already previously restricted for that, so it's a moot
It
point.
already was in place.
Yes,
under the
sir.
queue. Okay, sir.
So those are in addition to the.
Thank you for that explanation.
And on that queue.
You need to speak into the microphone, my friend.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Yeah.
On that particular queue, when talking with development, the businesses listed there in the first item on that queue are the only things that are allowed. So there was, not only is it already restricted, but that particular sheet with the queue says that the only things that are allowed are the things that are there on there.
Paul, just for my own edification, if you don't mind, I'm trying to understand. Are you, Robert, Tommy? This was already. These pieces of property were already queued.
No. That must be a deed restriction.
I mean, that's what I just understood him to say. Did I miss something?
Where is
So these are zoned residential currently.
There is a covenants and restrictions on that. Any property from the neighborhood, any property that adjoins Ann Street is subject to the covenants and restrictions of the neighborhood. And in that covenant restriction is no tire, auto repair.
So the queue for Hardy was just, it was already in place?
Yes,
And so it would apply here, and that's what he's telling me.
that's what he's saying.
Okay, so okay, I accept that. I can understand that. So you're saying anything that touches Ann Street, property-wise, is not allowed to have filling stations, et cetera, et cetera?
That's correct.
That's what y'all's understanding? Okay. Well,
Okay. Any more questions from the audience? Or any more comments from the audience? If not, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, come on in, Helen.
Thank you.
I didn't see you, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind the developer that the consideration for no fast foods or drive-throughs was brought up last month at the hearing, so it was something that should have been on his radar that was going to be an issue anyway. And I believe even Mr. Cook addressed that at the time. Mr. Cook, if I'm not mistaken, said exactly what I had thought, that until Hardee's and Popeyes were there, the neighborhood didn't know how detrimental that kind of business could be there, and might have fought harder against those two fast foods if they had realized. And one of the main things is the incessant traffic at a fast food is very different from a restaurant. If you have a sit-down restaurant on that large property, the traffic's going to be a little bit slower because people are going to be, they're not going through a drive-through window, it's going to be slower. And there's a lot more noise, there's a lot more problem with cars and music from the cars and the smell of the food and the things we talked about last time. So that is one of the primary concerns of a neighborhood, any neighborhood, your neighborhood, my neighborhood, Holland Park, having a fast food restaurant in your backyard is one of the biggest problems you could have for any neighborhood. And it sounds like it's going to be a terrible problem for a developer, but it's a worse problem for the people who are going to live there forever unless they can afford to move. And we did take out a lot of, they may have included some of the ones that we took out, but we're not asking for all of the qualifiers that were approved and agreed to by Hardee's.
Have you seen this sheet?
No, we haven't. We didn't know about that sheet.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I just want to say I don't know how much involvement this developer has had with the folks in the neighborhood. Obviously, there are some questions that the neighborhood still has. However, our job is to take action on this item. So, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Sir, your motion fails. Your motion fails. You didn't have 5 votes.
So there's no,
Next item.
so there's no action.
Next item is Jeff Coat Engineers and Surveyors on behalf of Delaney Properties Group LLC. It's a request for final approval of DPG Shopping Center's Plat Number 1 on the northwest corner of Ann Street and Plum Street in a R60S district.
Tommy, is this the plat for the item that we just talked about?
Yes, sir.
But it's no point in going through that one, is it?
Well, if you plat it, they can work on a new development that would be a soft development.
Well, it's up to them. I mean, I hadn't heard that from the petitioner.
Isn't it true that your decision tonight is a recommendation to the council?
That is true.
Well, the plat needs to proceed on.
All right, very good. We can do that. All right.
Okay. Now, this is very simple. Lot A, which includes the entire 5 lots put into one, so there won't be any building across property lines, and it's required by the building department. So that's the purpose. It will be a development of one big lot now.
Okay, Guthrie, let me say this based on the notes that I have for points of clarification. I don't know if you have the same thing, but my item number 2 says this plat replats 5 lots into 1 lot for commercial use if rezoned to B3 commercial. Now that's what my remarks say. Now maybe I'm missing something here.
But that was not a qualification we asked for when we put it on the agenda.
That comment came from our department.
It came from, so is that the department level? I'm going by what's in front of me, Guthrie, that's all.
Okay.
So Tommy, how do we deal with this?
You can deal with it as a regular plat submittal.
And so we'll ignore the fact that the rezoning didn't take place?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's.
So we're going to have 1 lot that's a residential lot.
Right.
Right.
So do you understand that, Guthrie, and the developer client?
Yes.
You're about to rezone this one big parcel for,
Not rezoned.
I mean, not rezone, I'm sorry, replat for 1 residential lot.
I understand.
Okay, I'm just wanting to take the time to be clear because the rezoning didn't happen, so now.
Of course, now, you know, along those lines, the plat's not a plat until it's recorded, and there's a lot of things up in the air now, and until those are settled, my developer probably won't put it in the courthouse.
Very good, let's proceed.
Yeah.
So, are you done?
Yes, sir. We'd like approval of the plat.
Very good. All right. So we've heard Guthrie's presentation. Any commission members have any comments or questions for Guthrie? Seeing none, any members of the audience who should speak for or against this item? There's Ms. Helen again.
I'm not speaking for or against at this time, but I don't understand what the fallout can be from having it this action taken at this time. I just wonder what this leads to in the future. Does it make it easier for something to go through, or what's the purpose?
You got one big residential lot is what you got, if this plat is approved, instead of the 5. That's the only difference.
So
One big residential.
changing it to one big residential doesn't make anything any easier or harder. You still go through the same steps and process for anything in the future.
In order for them to utilize it the way they would like to utilize it, it would have to be rezoned.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, buddy.
And it makes it easier for any developer to look at it comprehensively, and they may come up with a development you like better once they have it
Right.
platted like that.
Okay. All right, any other folks in the audience who speak for or against this item? Seeing none, the motion is in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Now, one big residential lot.
Yes.
Third item is by Jeff Code Engineers and Surveyors.
Tommy, just a second, please.
Oh, I'm
I think
sorry.
Robert wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
Just about the first item, just so the developer knows, and Mr.
Guthrie.
Jeff Coat, I'm about to say Guff Coat, being that the first item, you only had 4, you didn't have 5 to disapprove, so you really had no action.
No action.
On the first item. So I want everybody to be clear on that.
The proponent has the right to appeal to city council, and they have 15 days to do that, and by notifying the clerk in writing.
And if they appeal, within
That's
that.
That's at another venue, though. We're done with it here.
Correct.
But I just want to be clear now, because in the minutes that we were just approved for this item, similar item last week, item 14, the note says the motion failed, and that's what I think we said tonight. This motion failed.
No, it did not fail. You didn't have 5.
Well, I think we need to have some conversation.
No action was taken.
It's just no action.
If it didn't pass, it failed.
Correct.
That's correct.
Go to page 6 of 8 on the minutes.
That's what it says.
Go to the very last statement that's made on page 6 of 8, and somebody please read that. Anybody?
Mr. Tate,
I'll
if
just-
if
go
an
ahead.
action doesn't have 5 votes, it does not pass, it fails.
That's what we said. It
I know.
says the motion failed, therefore no action was taken.
Right. It can
So
only
the motion
pass with
failed.
5 votes.
I'm sorry?
It can only pass with 5 votes.
So the motion failed.
Right.
Thank you. Thomas?
Still no action.
Number 3.
Number 3, please.
Okay, Jeff Code Engineers and Surveyors on behalf of Max Federal Credit Union requesting final approval of Max Credit Union Plat Number 2 on the south side of Chantilly Parkway and east side of Ryan Road in a B2 district.
Guthrie?
This again is an example of 2 lots that were platted years ago, and there's going to be development there with the Max Credit Union, and they don't want building across the lot lines, and the building department requires to consolidate and plot it into one lot.
Thank you, sir. Any members of the audience who should speak for or against this item? We have a lady behind you coming up, Guthrie. Yes, ma'am. Tell us your name, please.
My name is Lois Brown. I'm not a resident of this area, but we do own property on Handy Road, and it is east of Ryan Road. And as I understand it, Max Federal Credit Union will develop a portion of that, right? Because you're right on the corner.
Yes.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda will fully explain that. Somebody else is handling it.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, that's what I would like to hear, because this is the first time I've been involved in a meeting on that property.
Okay, so are you concerned about the plat, or are you concerned about the development of what's taking place on
I'm concerned about both, because there are residents on Handy Road. I'm not one, but certainly there are some. And if they are here, I'm sure they will come up.
Okay.
But what is your concern?
My concern is when Max Federal place the building or whatever you're going to put on Chantilly, when you do that, where will the parking area be? Will it be located on Ryan Road? And if it is located on Ryan Road, that will be the entrance to the residential area, Ryan and Handy Road.
Yeah, and I think, go ahead, buddy.
Guthie's right. That's going to be in the development plan, which is next.
That's why I asked her what she's concerned about the plan of the development.
Thank you for clarifying.
One item, not this item, but the very next item.
The very next one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, indeed. Okay, Guthrie. I'm sorry. Anybody else want to speak for or against this item? Please come forward. Okay. So we're looking for a motion on this item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is New Ground International, Inc. On behalf of Max Credit Union. This is a public hearing for a development plan for a new building to be located on the south side of Chantilly Parkway and east side of Ryan Road. It's a B2 district.
Give us your name, please.
Yes, my name's Chip Nix, and I'm with New Ground, representing Max Credit Union. So Max purchased this property several years ago, and there was also some questions about jurisdiction. So last year we actually annexed into the city, which leads us to today. The site plan, proposed site plan, is up on the screen. You can see that the development is primarily focused towards Chantilly Parkway, one access point off of Ryan Road. I'll make a clarification in the site plan's correct, but the actual narrative that was provided by staff says that it's construct a 5,400 square foot. But if you look at the site plan, it actually says two-story, and it's a total of 10,000 square feet. So it's about 5,000 per floor.
Multiplied times 2.
Say again?
Multiplied times 2 for the second story. Okay.
So just a clarification from the staff. All departments have reviewed. Minor comments were received from staff. They've all been addressed. We believe we're complying with the planning requirements.
So Chip, would you take a second to explain this site plan to the lady that came up on the previous item?
Sure.
Well, I'm sorry. Ms. Brown?
And also address what's going to happen with the balance of the land.
So there's no plans for the balance at this point. I will tell you that at one point Max had considered, if you will, maximizing the development on the property, and last year we were actually looking at a much larger building. They've decided that they really don't need that. They bought this property about 12 or 14 years ago purely for a branch and a retail bank branch. And the only reason it's a two-story is because there's a couple of small departments like lending that will go in there. So it's slightly bigger than a branch, but they don't really need to have any plans for future expansion. We laid it out just so that if in the future they did decide to put an additional building on the property, they could, but there's no plans for doing it anytime in the near future.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Yes. Now, will you have a parking area, I'm sure?
Ms. Brown, you're going to have to speak into the microphone so we can hear you.
So yes, if you look at the plan up there, Ryan Road's on the bottom of the page. There's one curb cut going into the property. The building kind of sits in the middle of that right there. And there's parking to the left, which is the primary parking area, and the main entrance to the building actually fronts Chantilly Parkway. So most of the parking is there. There's staff parking that will be between the building and Ryan Road, and some staff parking between the building and the residential area to the north. But that is, people come in the morning, They're there all day and then they leave in the afternoon. All the customer traffic will be basically along the front of the building where Chantilly Parkway is.
Because Max Credit Union owns the property right on the corner, are you going to utilize that as an entrance or an exit from the credit union?
Yes, it's shown right there. There's one driveway.
One driveway,
going
and that's
in
coming from Ryan Road.
From Ryan Road.
Now, the residents who live on Handy Drive, are they in agreement? Because I don't live there, but I am concerned about it.
I know that, and I don't know the neighbor's name, but I know that at least one of the neighbors has been in contact with Max because she's complained about overgrowth from the credit union's property hanging on to Hanley Road. And one thing that we're going to do as part of the improvements is we're going to basically, for 10 or 15 feet along Hanley Road, is cut back all the overgrowth so that she won't have anything hanging over the road.
So when you cut the overgrowth, are you going to put concrete?
No,
or what are you going to do there?
it's-
You're just going to keep maintaining
We're going
that?
to cut it back so it doesn't hang over the road.
Okay. But I mean, are you going to maintain it? Because it's ridiculous now.
Yes, it's just, it's grown wild, it's hanging over. She calls Max all
Yeah,
the
it's
time
everywhere.
asking him to do something. And so when we're out there with all the heavy equipment, we're going to sort of like bush hog it back away from the road.
One other question. Since my family's property abuts what Maxwell owns, do you know what the intentions are for the future? Are you going to the northeast? Or are you going to stay within what Maxwell owns right now?
Right now, that's the plan.
And the residents are in agreement with it?
As far as I know. Like I said, they've owned it for a dozen years, so they've been in contact with Max.
Okay,
over
I've
the
never
years.
met with Max, and my parents, who owned that property, are deceased, and the only contact I've had regarding this was coming from the Planning Commission.
I see.
In a letter. Otherwise, I would not have known.
Okay.
Is there a possibility that?
Well, let me jump in here, Ms. Brown. Now that you have met this nice gentleman here, hopefully you guys can exchange contact information, and as
I
they
hope
have plans,
so.
maybe they'll stay
Okay.
in contact with you. So looks like everything's in order from a zoning perspective. So we're not
And
rezoning
planning.
anything out
Yeah.
there. So now that y'all have contact information, maybe we can get that communication started and maintained. Okay?
I hope so.
Thank you.
This is a development plan, so it does not require this commission's approval. This is a public hearing. So are there any other comments from the audience that wish to express themselves here tonight? Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing has been held. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
The next item is presented by Good Mills and Kaywood, representing New Park Development Company LLC. Request final approval of New Park plat number 8A, located on the southeast corner of Park Crossing and Chastain Park Drive in a PUD.
Give us your name, please.
Judy Jones with Goodwin Mills and Kaywood. And okay, that is the common area that was supposed to have been platted with Plat 8. And somehow or another with the plans, the street, whenever it was done, it said not included. So the CAD guy pretty much, when it said not included, he didn't include it with this plat. So we're just trying to plat it so it will be kind of a part of Plat A.
So you're just blaming the CAD guy, huh?
Uh-huh.
Does he still have a job?
He does.
Good, thank you. Very good. So, commissioners, do you have any comments, questions? Any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Thank you, ma'am. Next item.
The next item is presented by Flowers and White, representing Philip Pouncey. It'll be a public hearing for a development plan for 2 new buildings and a recreational vehicle park. This is to be located at the southwest side of Troy Highway, approximately 1,200 feet south of Taylor Ridge Road, in a B2 commercial and a B2Q commercial zoning district.
All right, KJ, give us your name.
Hey, I'm Kenneth White, Jr. with Flowers and White, representing Philip Pouncey. Thanks, James. Like he said, there's two 9,000 square foot buildings proposed in an RV park in a B2Q zoning. And then there's a public road planned right there accessing from Troy Highway that gives access to this property here. I can entertain any questions, should there be any.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so members of the commission, any questions or comments for KJ? Seeing none, any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, we'll declare that a public hearing has been held. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
The next item is presented by Pilgrim Engineering, representing Ream Manufacturing. The public hearing is for a development plan for a new building to be located at 2600 Gunner Park Drive East in an M1 zoning district.
Hey, Pep, give us your name.
Pep Pilgreen with Pilgreen Engineering. We're working at Ream. This is actually, there are two lots there that's colored in. It's a separate lot. There's nothing on this lot but parking. And where we're intending on putting there is a modular, a modular building for a wellness center for the employees. We'll have a separate entrance coming in for family or whatever to come from the outside. But it's just a totally separate building from any of the manufacturing facility. And we're not going to lose parking. We're going to replace what we have and rearrange it.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Members of the commission, any comments or questions? Seeing none, any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, we'll declare a public hearing has been held. Thank you.
The next item will be presented by J.M. Garrett & Son, representing H&H Carpets. Serving as place of public hearing for a development plan for a new building to be located at 6450 Atlanta Highway in a B3 commercial zoning district.
Give us your name, please.
My name is Richard Bollinger. I'm with J.M. Garrett & Son. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. What we're wanting to do is add an additional storage building. That's all at the back of this lot.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Members of the commission, any questions or comments for Mr. Bollinger? Any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we will declare a public hearing has been held.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
The next item is presented by Larry Speaks and Associate for Wayward Properties LLC. Requested final approval of 5 Points Cottage/Cultural Commission, plat number 1, located on the southwest corner of Martha Street and North Goldway Street in T40, which is a general urban smart code zoning district, and will require a vote.
Very good. Thank you. What's your name, sir?
Paul McClendon. I'm with Larry Speaks and Associates. On behalf of the 5 Points Cultural Commission, we're requesting plat approval for basically 2 lots at Goldway and Martha Street. These parcels have been, it's basically a replat of numerous portions of other lots, previously platted lots that have been conveyed through meets and bounds. We're just trying to clean the property lines up and get it ready for development.
Thank you. Members of the commission, any questions or comments from Paul? Seeing none, any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item, please come forward. Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
I'm glad to see something going on up there.
The next item is presented by Larry Speaks and Associates, representing Randy Visor. Request final approval of Randy Visor, plat number 1, located on the south side of Atlanta Highway, approximately 260 feet east of Marketplace in a B3 commercial zoning, and will require a vote.
Thank you. What's your name, sir?
My name's Henry Harris, Larry Speaks and Associates.
Hey, Henry. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Wonderful.
You know, there's not really much going on with this. The owner is just looking to sell the property, no plans to develop. So basically that's it if there's any questions.
Okay. Members of the commission, any questions or comments for Henry?
Did, Mr. Senator, did you make a reference to Martha's Place?
No, he said Martha Street.
Marketplace.
Market Street, okay.
Marketplace.
I didn't say it, not anywhere close to Marketplace, okay.
Any other questions for for Henry? Any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item, please come forward. Seeing none, a motion's in order.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Thank you, sir. Next item.
The next item is presented by Professional Engineering Consultants, representing Scott and Laura Baker. Request final approval of Baker/Raven Plat Number 1, located on the north side of Old Selma Road, approximately 200 feet west of Booth Road, in an agricultural and a flood hazard zoning districts, and will require a vote.
Pat, give us your name, please.
My name is Pat Mosley. I'm with Professional Engineering Consultants. This is a young couple who are going to build a home on Old Selma Road, and they have to get it planted.
Thank you. Members of the commission, any questions or comments for Pat? Seeing none, any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item, please come forward. Seeing none, a motion's in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 12.
Professional Engineering Consultants, representing Republic National Distributing. Public hearing for development plan for a new building to be located at 836 Lagoon Commercial Boulevard in an M1 zoning district, and this will be just a public hearing.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Mosley with Engineering Consultants, and this is a warehouse type building. I think they're going to distribute wine and spirits.
Okay, very good. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments on this item?
We probably need one by now.
I know it.
Thank you.
But that's not going to influence our vote, believe me. Any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, we'll declare public hearing has been held. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next item will be presented by Tony Kim, representing Globus America Incorporated. Public hearing for a development plan for new canopies to be located at 250 Hyundai Boulevard in the M3 Industrial Zoning District, and will not require a vote.
Tell us your name, sir.
Tony Kim, representing Globus America.
Okay.
Globus America proposed to construct 3 canopies in the vehicle storage lot. Each canopy will size about 759 square feet. These canopies will provide a shaded area for employees.
Thank you, Tony. This is a public hearing. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments for Tony? Seeing none, any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll declare a public hearing has been held. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
The next item will be Tony Kim, representing Hyundai Motor Manufacturing of Alabama. Public hearing for a development plan for addition to a building to be located at 800 Hyundai Boulevard in an M3 Industrial Zoning District, and will not require a vote.
Tony?
Yeah, Tony Kim again, representing Hyundai Motor Manufacturing Alabama. Hyundai Motors proposed to construct about 1,900 square feet addition to the existing welding shop. This addition will be used for employee break area.
Thank you. This is a development plan. Therefore, this is a public hearing. Members of the commission, any questions or comments for Tony? Seeing none, are there any questions or comments from Tony from the audience? Seeing none, we'll declare public hearing has been held. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
The next item will be presented by the Broadway Group, representing the same. Public hearing for a development plan for a new building to be located on the northwest corner of West Fairview Avenue and Moreland Road in a B2 commercial zoning. This will not require a vote.
Thank you. What's your name?
Alyssa Carter, and I'm representing the Broadway Group. We are looking to develop a 7,500 square foot commercial retail store here.
Thank you. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments for Alyssa?
Where will this store actually be on the property?
You can see just ahead on the screen, the front doors will actually be facing Moreland Road, but there will be some windows near the entrance that will be facing West Fairview.
That take care of you, Frank?
Yeah.
15B.
Can
Any other
you
questions?
mention the retailer's name?
I cannot at this time.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Any members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item? This is a public hearing. Seeing none, we will declare a public hearing has been held. Thank you. Next item.
The next item is presented by the Broadway Group, representing the same. Request final approval of Broadway, West Fairview Avenue plat located on southwest corner of West Fairview Avenue and Moreland Road in the B2 zoning district and will require a vote.
Alyssa Carter with the Broadway Group, and we're just looking to combine these two lots into one.
Very good. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Actually, I think you have a third lot. Is it just 2 or 3?
It's just 2, I do believe.
The paperwork says 3.
Well, we'll let the record reflect that it's just 2 lots,
Okay.
okay? Any members of the commission have any other comments or questions? Members of the audience wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and proper second. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, well voted. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item.
I'm sorry. This item is presented by the Department of Planning, representing the City of Montgomery. Request approval of the City of Montgomery South Side Montgomery Community Plan.
And you are?
I am Robert Smith, Director of Planning for the great city of Montgomery.
Amen.
And I also have with me, I'm going to let him introduce himself. But basically what you have here before you, as you all remember, as of Monday, per your last meeting, we did, at your request, do a work session so you could have a presentation, a formal presentation on the South Montgomery draft plan. And now we're back here post presentation for your approval. And I have Mr. Jason Fondren, who is with the consulting firm of KPS Group, who assisted us at the community's request after staff actually completed the very first draft. And after a period of time, it took us a little while to get the funds to actually be able to pay for Mr. Fondren at the community's request, and we finally did get that. He does charge, but he does really good work. So I'll turn it over to him for a short presentation if you so choose.
Well, hit the highlights if you don't mind for the record, but we had a very engaging public hearing, was it?
Very engaging work session, public meeting, because there were at least 5 of you all there in the department on Monday, with the exception of, I think everybody was there with the exception of Mr. Cook.
Cook, and I came late.
And you did
But the
come.
fact of the matter, we had a very engaging conversation
And
information.
very well attended with people that live in that area and people that own businesses in that area and the whole 9 yards.
Okay, Jason, hit the high points if you don't mind, please. Sir.
Yes, sir. I'm glad to.
I mean the real high points, Jason.
All right, we'll forego the PowerPoint then. The South Montgomery Plan sets forth a set of goals that emerged during community meetings that were initially held back in 2013-14 by staff, and then were followed up with some meetings earlier this year to make sure that all of that was in keeping with the wishes of the community. Those are community organization, community image, economic development, youth programs, housing, public safety, public facilities, and then some land use and zoning issues in order to encourage reinvestment both along Southern Boulevard as well as to encourage housing infill development within the single-family neighborhoods of South Montgomery. I think probably some of the high points that need to be understood is, of course, that the Southern Boulevard has historically been a retail corridor. Retail has declined on that corridor, and it is also declining nationwide. And therefore, we need to be thinking differently about how this Southern Boulevard will be reinvested in the future, that we can't assume or be dependent on it being a retail corridor, and therefore some other options need to be considered. And part of what can be done by the city as well as property owners is to look at ways to change the image of the corridor, to be recruiting different types of businesses, to be looking at both opportunities for redevelopment as well as infill development, changing some of the existing properties so that they're more suitable for a broader range of uses, again, not simply just retail. As far as the housing areas within South Montgomery, we heard very early on in the process that the community had concerns about high-density development, about multifamily development, and there are a number of large tracts in South Montgomery that are available for, theoretically, for residential development. They're zoned for residential. They are effectively sandwiched in between single-family neighborhoods, but most of those are also impacted by the floodplains that follow along White's Slough and Baldwin Slough. As a way to deal with those potential constraints for residential development, the plan recommends the city look at adding options for conservation subdivisions within the city's development management program, so that the owners and developers of those properties would not be unreasonably constrained in terms of the potential for single-family development in those areas by concentrating the single-family development in those portions of the properties that are not within the floodplain and reserving those portions of the property that are within the floodplain as common space or green space of some sort. That's a type of development that has worked in several parts of the country to enable development in areas that had otherwise been left alone because of the potential environmental issues, and by having some flexibility within the regulatory, within zoning and subdivision, it's kind of lifted some of that constraint and incentivized development in those locations. So that's staying in line with the idea of single-family neighborhoods, that the community would like to see that character retained. I guess maybe just to move on to one of the issues that came up that was very important to several people is the Macedonia community is a very diverse neighborhood within South Montgomery. It developed outside before it was incorporated into the city, and therefore it doesn't meet the normal zoning standards of other that you can see in many of the other subdivisions within South Montgomery. We suggested, in order to enable property owners to reinvest in those properties, given that there are some nonconformities with zoning, that an overlay be created, and the city staff work with the residents in the Macedonia community to develop that right balance of flexibility to enable reinvestment and hopefully to create some more stability and some more assurance amongst the folks who live and own property in Macedonia, to improve their properties, reinvest in them over time, and not be limited by a set of rules that were placed on them after the area had developed and once they were incorporated into the city. One of the other major issues within the plan, the recommendations, is the idea of creating greater safety for people walking around, bicycling around, trying to get around the community, and taking advantage of the sloughs, and potentially, long-term, looking at Katoma Creek as a potential preserve and trail system that could eventually connect the southern parts of the city up to the river and into downtown along the west side. Again, that's a very big picture concept, but was something that emerged through the conversations during the planning process. And so we felt it was important to identify or document that inside the plan. Several recommendations that were made to extend bicycle and pedestrian routes that are within the Montgomery MPO's bicycle pedestrian plan, to extend some of those into the South Montgomery area, and by using the sloughs and the other recommended routes, provide plenty of opportunities for children to move about the neighborhood, to get to schools and parks without having to cross major streets, and having safe spaces within which to bicycle and walk.
Is that it?
There's a set of priorities in the plan, short term,
briefly, please, and
medium term, and long term. If you'll just skip there towards the end. I'll just highlight some. I won't go over every single one of those, but priorities in the first phase: getting the community organized, doing some beautification projects along the major corridors, adding housing options to the zoning ordinance to enable that flexibility I mentioned before, doing an access management study along the Southern Boulevard. The second set of, or second phase of projects, catalytic development on Southern Boulevard, which may involve in some form the city of Montgomery, bicycle and pedestrian improvements in various parts of the neighborhood, a community gardening program, wayfinding signage installed along major roads. And then in the third phase, access management improvements, essentially executing plans that are put forward in the second phase. And very long term, again, is looking at the Katoma Creek Preserve.
Go over the land use, existing land use, future land use.
Okay. Included within the plan, the South Montgomery plan, is a future land use plan, which is based very closely on the existing pattern of development in the community, where single-family residential areas are, commercial, light industry along Troy Highway. All of that was taken into close account, taking into consideration as well the floodplains and other considerations. I think we've been very respectful of the pattern of development so far. There are no recommendations, given the input from the community, for any new multifamily or attached single-family residential. The recommendations for infill housing are all exclusively detached single-family, although they may vary in the level of density, but generally within a medium density range. And we've shown a pattern of, over time, there being more residential development going southward towards Katoma Creek, but as you get closer to Katoma Creek, there's still a line being held essentially where it maintains a very low density or rural feel.
Thank you. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this presentation and plan that's been prepared for us?
I got one comment, and that's the issue, just for the record. There are no rezonings in this plan, and everything is remaining as it is at this point in time before this was presented to the planning commission.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Think you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. After we met, and you exchanged contact information with some of the citizens, did you get any pushback or approval or any comments?
Any comments or pushback?
Yeah.
Pretty much from one individual that we have been commenting and talking to the entire time. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions from the commission? Seeing none, we'll have to ask the members of the audience to come forward and speak for or against the plan.
I didn't get to sign in.
Come on.
You don't have to sign in. Just give us your name, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, Lee Cooper.
Hey, Lee.
Good evening.
Good to see you.
Ladies and gentlemen. In the future, I'm going to say ladies and gentlemen. But
Okay.
we enjoy all of you. I live at 3824 Pine Valley Court. I think everybody knows where I live, and I ordered my goats. Jason, come here, darling. Here's a map that's in my plan. I want you to come see me. And I'm going to get a pony. I'm going to get a pony because I'm not on your map. And so when you get to here, you call me and I will come get you on my horse, okay? Is that a good deal?
Sure.
All right, there we go.
Hey, Lee, you got some other folks, so if you will.
Pardon me?
I said there's some other people that want to speak tonight, so we want you to.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead and start your presentation.
I enjoyed seeing the slides. There actually were some things I had not seen before, the priority plan, the phasing in, and so I look forward to having that, being able to see that in writing at some point in time. Okay, all right. Here is something I'd like to ask you about on page 16. It talks about housing, and it says encourage quality housing options appropriate to the neighborhood, including. And then there's not any examples. Could you help me with that in a future date or sometime?
Page 16.
Mm-hmm.
While he's looking
I
for
don't
that,
want to
Lee,
delay anybody.
We'll come back to that.
Okay,
particular
all
item in a
right.
second.
And then also, on page 33, I enjoyed seeing this the bigger picture of everything, but the guide along here that told me what these colors were, I don't have on my plan, but I could pick it up at some time.
Yeah, I bet you Jason will make that available
Yeah,
to you.
okay.
Yeah. Jason, please make a note of these items, you and Robert.
Yes.
Okay. I think this time, I want to pledge my commitment to you, Robert, and to you, Jason. I would like to say that I'm the person that contacted Jason, and when we were a study group, remember, after that plan. I'm very environmentally minded, so Jason, and I say to the Planning Commission also, that I hope, however our district is developed, that it will include a look at the soils with a soil scientist, a geologist, because I think that's very important for all our old lands that actually Mother Nature developed a long time ago. I wanted to draw your attention to the Bellmead subdivision that I did on a soil map. I know you can't see it really well, but red always means stop. Bellmead has extensive problems with flooding, foundational problems. Of course, this was a long time ago when they were built. This is a new century. This is a new plan. And so Jason and Robert, as you were executing this, please keep in mind Mother Nature.
Absolutely.
Simply what I'm saying. Thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Lee.
it.
And Jason and Robert will get you the answers to those questions you had about on page 16 and on page 33. Okay? Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Give us your name,
Hello,
please.
my name is Carolyn Good.
Hello, Ms.
And
Good.
I am here because, of course, I am ecstatic about the plans for South Montgomery. I just only have one thing I just want to know, and I'm not afraid to say my age. I'm 54. So I want to know, well, will this take place in my lifetime, or maybe it's my grandchildren or something? That's all I want to know.
Please be honest.
Yes, please.
She was honest with us, so we got to be honest with her.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Very good.
But it does have a horizon of 20 years, but it does have priority phasing. So we're gonna try to, the first action of business once this is adopted is to develop an implementation team that is made up of all of the neighborhood association presidents and maybe some interested businesses and people that have a real interest in seeing it get done. And we will try to prioritize what gets done first, all the way down to the very last thing. And we always try to start with the low-hanging fruit, the easiest things to get done first, and then move on to the more complex items. So the answer is yes, ma'am.
Any other issues, ma'am?
So, because I have this deep personality, I am a person about let's get it done. And so I do appreciate you saying that you all do have a plan of getting it started. I've been living in Belle Meade since 1994. And so I've seen the area go down tremendously, the whole area off Woodley Road. And so I'm excited about it. But I do hope that it does take place sometime soon.
So it looks like you're willing to participate on some of these teams.
I will be glad to.
Well, what if
My
y'all
husband, I will be
exchange
glad to.
information? If y'all
Yes.
exchange information, maybe they'll consider that.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we're nearing the end of the presentation, I think. And Jason, as I mentioned before, if you'll get Ms. Cooper the information she's asked about outside of this meeting, then that'll satisfy her. Any further questions from Robert or Jason? Seeing none, a motion's in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes.
Thank y'all.
You're welcome. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
I got one of these, okay?